Today is Sunday, the 15th of October at 8:30 in the morning here in Israel. There is an absolutely huge humanitarian crisis happening at this very moment in Gaza. 1.2 million Palestinian citizens have been told to flee northern Gaza and cross over to the southern part before Israel goes in either on the ground or continues with aerial bombing. This is a humanitarian crisis of epidemic proportions. And let me say from the very beginning, as an Israeli, PLM, Palestinian Lives Matter. Yes, Palestinian lives matter, but not to Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization that uses its own Muslim civilians as political and propaganda pawns. They use them as their own personal shields against the Israel Defense Force. They are responsible for Palestinian deaths, not the Israeli Defense Force. Now, you may think this sounds incredible. IDF is bombing Gaza and we are not responsible. Hamas savages, brutal, anti-humane animals, I don't know what to call them. They started this war. We didn't start this war. Hamas started this war. They are responsible for their own civilian deaths. I opened the newscast this morning on television and saw Sky News. I saw hundreds of demonstrators in London with placards saying, "Free Palestine," placards saying, "Stop Israeli crimes against humanity," placards saying, "Stop Israeli apartheid." Well, all I can say is that they do not know the facts on the ground. Free Palestine? Israel freed Palestine 18 years ago when Ehud Olmert, as Prime Minister, disengaged from Gaza and we destroyed 21 Israeli settlements. We left hothouses there for Hamas, for the civilians to grow their own food. And what did Hamas do? They pulled those hothouses down. Yasser Arafat moved his seat of government over to Ramallah in the West Bank, and Israel had unilaterally freed and created de facto Western Palestine. And what did Hamas do? How did they respond? How did they govern their own people? They started their crimes against humanity. They killed, murdered, hung Palestinians in the streets of Gaza. They started an 18-year a rocket and missile bombardment of the Israeli settlements around the Gaza border. That's how they thanked us for us freeing Palestine. Israeli apartheid, such utter nonsense, balderdash, bullshit, whatever you want to call it. 50% of the Israeli doctors are Muslims. The pharmacies are staffed by Muslim staff. The building and haulage in an industry is dominated by Muslim. There is no apartheid, no government ruling separating Muslims as Israeli citizens from Jewish citizens or Druze or Circassians. You talk about apartheid. We built a wall along the West Bank, which is not only a concrete wall, but in many cases a fence. That is not apartheid. That is a barrier to stop Hamas terrorists coming into Israel. Before that wall was built, we had massacres all over the place in Israel. Bombs on buses, bombs in hotels, individual massacres. Since that wall and fence was erected, we have mostly stopped infiltration of Hamas into Israel, who murder and whatever else they plan to do with the Israeli Jewish citizens. So when you see those scenes of utter demonstration, of buildings turned into rubble and debris, when you see those scenes on your television and computer and phone screens of dead and injured Palestinians, and when you see Hamas parading their dead and dead babies in front of cameras as trophies of casualties, just remember one thing. Hamas is using its own citizens as political pawns and propaganda to make you retch and have gut reactions and to point the finger at the Israel Defense Force. Yes, we bomb them. No, we are not responsible for this war. War is war. Hamas want to slaughter every one of the 7.2 million Jews in Israel and many, many other Muslims who are law-abiding citizens of Israel. Hamas sees those moderate Muslims in Israel as infidels in exactly the same way as ISIS. They are willing to come in here and decapitate them too. I know it's very hard not to have this gut reaction about the scenes of devastation and casualties in Gaza. But remember that if Israel does not play out this endgame of getting rid of Hamas terrorist regime in Gaza, it will go on continually. So please do everything in your power. I'm not talking to the converted here. I'm not talking to Jews and other people around the world in the West who already support Israel. I'm talking about those Muslims out on the streets now supporting Hamas. Turn your placards the other way round and demand that Hamas stop its military organization. Demand that Hamas stop using Palestinians as pawns, because as I have said, PLM, Palestinian Lives Matter, just as much as ILM, Israeli Lives Matter. So what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to to demand that the Israeli Defense Force stops its actions. This is completely wrong. If you want to perpetuate the Hamas military savage regime in Gaza, think twice before you go out onto the streets to demonstrate against Israel. My last word, I say again, PLM, Palestinian Lives Matter, but not to Hamas.